Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Inside Furman Athletics. I am Dan Scott, the voice of the Paladins. Very good to have you with us, as always, on another beautiful day, at least right now, as we are recording this here on this Wednesday afternoon, or late Wednesday morning, I guess, to be precise. It'll be out on Wednesday afternoon. But we've got a very good show lined up for you today. Of course, with the quality of the coaches we have on this campus, we believe every show is a good one. So no pressure to this week's guest, Robert Gary, who is the head coach of the cross country and track and field teams here at Furman. How you doing?
Good. Just getting excited for the upcoming weekend.
Yeah, this is, as you were telling me, this is going to be your first home race in 2 years because of COVID and then the hurricane the year before, right?
Yeah, actually 3 years. We were 2 years in a row. Hurricanes got us, and then last year, obviously, COVID. So I know the program's real excited. Parents, just our kids on the team, everybody.
Do you remember where the golf course is?
Oh, yeah. We've been out there plenty. Just those two given weekends, and obviously last year was a completely different beast. So,
how's it going to feel to actually be able to run? Have you kind of let yourself kind of go down that path yet after not doing it for, I guess, 3 years, like you said?
Well, I can tell you that I spent about the last 2.5 hours unloading Gatorade and water, so I didn't quite miss that much. But this really always marks really an entirety of a weekend of stuff for us, festivities. I always consider this kind of the real start of our cross-country season. A lot of times we have a preseason and kind of an opening small meet where we might just go over to Spartanburg or something. But this is really our home opener where we get some teams in. We run a full squad. Parents are here. A lot of VIPs. And it's really a fantastic weekend to kind of get started for us.
Yeah, we'll go a little more in depth into the weekend because it begins with a very nice event on Friday night. We'll do that in just a little bit, but let's kind of just get things caught up with you and the program. And I guess the first thing we need to do is congratulate you. It was announced just in the last 2 or 3 weeks about your new contract extension. So congratulations.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the stability and supports from Furman have been phenomenal since before we stepped foot on campus. And then every year we've been here. So I know my name's the one on the contract, but that's certainly when we negotiate and when we talk about it, we design it. It includes all the assistant coaches, operations, some of the events we want to host, everything. And Jason's been tremendous. And I really it's a great relief for us, and I think hopefully everyone's excited.
And I think the key word that you used there was stability, because what that does, and I want you to speak to this, it makes recruiting a lot easier if the people you're going out and talking to, the kids you're trying to get to come into your program, know that your contract status is such that you're going to be around for the entire time that they're here.
Yeah, the last 2 months actually have been really a big relief. This is usually the time when people are dodging around, moving jobs. We always talk to recruits, and they may have been talking to someone for a month, 2 months, a full year, and all of a sudden they're taking a job somewhere else or elsewhere. So I love that our staff is really just focused on the kids that we're coaching, recruiting. The transition in has been phenomenal. With these kids coming in, and I think it's because we have, the staff is stable and we're set and we're up and running and we're excited about the future.
The success of the program obviously helps as well, but from that standpoint, bringing everything together, how has recruiting been going?
It's great. We really needed to reload on the women's side, in particular. Brought in more guys than we ever have. Almost an entire new women's team to go along with an entire new women's team from the year before, if that makes sense. We kind of had our original girl gang class that kind of all graduated almost all at once. And so on campus right now, 10, 12 freshmen eligibility due to COVID. Women really make up the foundation of our program.
I guess the good part of recruiting now is that you're actually able to go out and see kids again. Mm-hmm. Of course, for the last year or so, you've been doing it all via Zoom or phone calls and not being able to go somewhere or not being able to bring kids to campus. How much did you miss that part of it?
Well, we actually started to find that a little bit more of a silver lining is it really was more of a shared partnership instead of us, really tracking them down, really telling them how much we wanted them. Kids had to kind of make a concerted effort to kind of get their list down. We knew if a kid was going to take time to come from wherever they were, and we've we recruit pretty nationally, and they had to pay their own, airfare to come out, on an unofficial visit when, campus wasn't, it was a dead period, so we weren't allowed to meet with them. But almost every single one of our recruits kind of spent their own dime to come on out, look around campus, fall in love with the campus, find the beauty of it. And for us, we're not really a shotgun program. I think it takes a special kind of kid. You gotta want that small, school, environment, a real focus on the distance area. So we have a way of whittling things down, and that was just one more way. So we were really excited. I mean, this year's recruiting is almost completely done, and they came just like a lot of other sports on kind of a victory tour of just kind of seeing everything and getting to come around and look around. And we signed, we were kind of done recruiting, really early this year, and that was a great relief. Like I said, so we can focus on what I always think are the most important thing is developing kids once they get here.
What does it say to you and Rita and the rest of the people surrounding the program about a kid who, under those circumstances, wanted to pay their own freight to come, knowing they couldn't talk to you? There was not an official visit. What does it say to you about that kid?
Well, I think it just illustrates great enthusiasm. And if there's one thing that we absolutely, it's a real easy thing in our sport to just go down the list of, this is the third best miler in the country. This is the, fifth best steeplechaser, anything like that. That's pretty easy stuff. But when you start seeing if kids are really enthusiastic about not only what they've accomplished, but perhaps more importantly, what they think they can do, what they want to be a part of, they want to buy in. Our ultimate goal is to win a trophy at the NCAA championships with both the men and the women, top four in the country. There's 430, cross-country programs in the country, so it's a tall order, but we do want people thinking on that level, excited about that level. So, when a kid's enthusiastic with us, we're very good at matching it. We got to be careful when we get out in front of people,
Yeah, and then the flip side of it is, what does it say about the program that kids wanted to do that under the circumstances that everybody was trying to recruit through in COVID? What does it say about the program itself that they wanted to come here on their own dime?
Yeah, I mean, you got to have the data points, I think, to back it up. I think we've done a good job of, putting this streak together for SoCon titles, representation at the NCAA championships. I loved getting calls from recruits while we're out at the NCAA outdoor track meet as well as the Olympic trials. So, you're always kind of, not only at a mid-major, but any program, you want to make sure that everybody realizes there's no ceiling over their head as far as their development goes. And through the supports of Furman, I think the expertise of our entirety of our coaching staff, training partners, we really feel like the sky's the limit for any individual on that kind of trajectory. And even, for Ryan Adams and Gabby Jennings, both signing professional contracts to go on and run professionally through the next Olympic quadrennium, really shows that, the sky's the limit. And, we always want to try to have those kids in place year in and year out.
Well, and it also says that even though this is quote unquote little old Furman, that those kids now nationally recognize they can come here and they can get that kind of exposure, they can have that kind of national success, and they can go on to bigger and better things.
Yeah, and recruiting. I mean, you talk about some other programs, in football, they reload, they don't rebuild. I feel like our program is now at a point where we are reloading. We don't have an off year. We still made the NCAA cross-country championships last year, and that was with an entire women's top 7, showing up to the NCAA championship. So, we always felt like once we made it once, we would continue to build on it, and I think we have. And I think it's the next mission of trying to get both programs into the top 15 and then working towards a trophy on both sides.
Robert Gary is the head cross-country and track and field coach here at Furman, the most decorated coach on Furman's campus. He's a 2-time Olympian in the steeplechase and has coached 63 cross-country and track and field All-Americans in his illustrious career, works with USA Track and Field. So when you start putting those things together and your association with USA Track and Field as well, that's got to be another help on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, I'm really proud of it. It's certainly I think the highest honor in coaching is to be an Olympic coach, but I was fortunate enough to be the head World Championship, the men's coach, and it's all the events, and so really just makes you a better coach. Similar to a lot of the professional athletes that we work with on campus, I think our whole staff are better, just as far as, cutting edge training meets we want to go to. Sometimes just getting, having kids leading by example. I think those are all tremendous things. But I think the national team coaching stuff is really something I'm quite proud of, and something that I take very seriously, and something that I want to continue to do. And I know Rita had a national team coaching assignment last year, with the junior team. And, you start getting access to juniors and getting the name out there, Furman name. I think that that's only a positive for both recruiting as well as kind of notoriety for the entire athletic department. We have a lot of coaches that kind of operate on that national team coaching, and I think that's really useful.
Your name is on the program as the head coach, but you and Rita are considered almost a tandem. And in fact, when we did the lunch and learn thing on Zoom last year so much, we did a little mock newlywed game with you guys, which was fun. How does that partnership work, and how has it been an advantage when it comes to building the program you've built here?
Well, I think it shows stability. I mean, obviously, Rita and I, we want to go someplace where we both can coach. And Rita stayed home with our son for several years and then wanted to get back into coaching, just as accomplished as anything I did. I think also, with both Chris Neal and Logan Roberts, we start to have 4 distance coaches that have all taken teams to the NCAA championships. We try to really collaborate things, a great deal. Obviously, Rita kind of gravitates a little bit more towards the women, I towards the men. But I think when you got that kind of people horsepower, kind of working together, it's real hard for a kid to fall through the cracks. And we talk about development all the time. We want kids getting better every single year, staying healthy for 4 to 5 years straight. When you have those kind of eyeballs and that kind of expertise, I think inside the planning room and then on the coaching field, I think it really makes for a recipe of kids getting better, which is the best motivator for anybody in our sport, staying healthy, those kinds of things. But also, I love when the men's and the women's program is rolling together. We haven't had a season where the men have rocked it and the women have been back, or vice versa. We're on a bus, all going there, all trying to accomplish the same things in the same direction. And so we're one of the smallest programs, certainly in the country, but I love that we're starting to be kind of a mainstay at the NCAA championships, as well as kind of where we finish, throughout. It includes academically, here on campus, and then leaving the NCAA championships. I think we had the 5th highest, total, combined. And that's a stat line I love when we have both programs kind of rocking and rolling. It's really infectious. And I think it's one of the secrets to our success.
Mentioned that you were a 2-time Olympian. The first, if I'm correct, was 96 in Atlanta, right? Okay, so how has your sport changed since you were kind of at the peak as an athlete? Now you're a coach, I won't say all these years later, but these years later, how has your sport changed?
Well, things have gotten faster for sure. And whether it's kind of new technology in Nike, better coaching, better diet, better tracks, et cetera, et cetera. The fact is, I think there's a lot. It's a lot tougher than back in my day. I think when you start to make the Olympic team, I think some of those are, somewhat commonalities, but how to make it to the NCAA meet, et cetera. We have 3 or 4 guys in the program last year that broke 4 in the mile. That was something I was never able to do in college. So, you move your frame of reference of, what's really top notch. And I think that's one thing we're really good at. I think you mentioned some of the U.S. track and field stuff, keeping up with the sport, making sure that you don't get left behind or stuck in a time warp. I probably have a lot more stories of not doing well to kind of share with the guys on the team, women on the team, than I do of times I really came through. And I think some of those, commonalities. I like to think that I can still hurdle a little bit better than most of them, in the steeplechase. But the truth is I'm probably 4th or 5th in the entire program, even in that nowadays. So.
But hey, at least you're not last, right?
No, I'm not last. We got a couple guys on the team that got some work to do. So.
Robert Gary, the head track and field and cross country coach, here joining us, and you kind of segued into where I was going with how things are different and athletes are getting better and everything else. You had 2 kids in 2020, 2 men, break the sub 4-minute mile here at Furman, which is just an incredible accomplishment. Yep. Just talk about those guys, what that means for your program, and the kind of message that sends, not only recruiting, but it sends nationally.
Yeah, I think actually by the end of outdoor, we actually had 4 guys that had broken 4, and I think that ranked us as the 3rd best mile group, which measures out, you got 4 people in each event. So trying to get some of that depth. It's not like, we just have one guy, and then you start to see the tiered mentorship that goes on. Ryan Adams, our first indoor meet, Ryan Adams goes and rabbits for Cameron Ponder so he can break 4 for the very first time. Ryan had done it, 2 years before that with some of the Furman elite guys. So that kind of mentorship going down. Aaron Weir then does the same thing. He breaks 4 in the mile, then qualifies for the NCAA indoor championships, which is probably one of the hardest, NCAA championships to qualify. And then Jake Ogden does it in the springtime with also Aaron Weir rabbiting for him. So you can see kind of the touchdown tiers of people kind of going. And so one of the big things we missed out on last year is going to Penn Relays, because we had 4 sub 4-minute milers, and as well as Ryan Adams was running, I felt like we could have won the Penn Relays 4 by a mile. I think it would have been a great, thing to try to get after. So carving carving out some of those stat lines, even when you need a number of people to be good, I think is a new thing for our program that we've just entered into the last 3 or 4 years that make it even more and more exciting.
Yeah, most of the sports that I deal with obviously are football, baseball, basketball, and baseball being the sport that I've loved since I was a kid. Knowing that inside that sport, when one player does really well, has a great accomplishment, or is having a great season, or maybe a pitcher who has a great game, it starts to breed competition inside the pitching rotation or inside the dugout. And I'm getting the sense that maybe the same thing was going on there. It's a healthy competition. One of your kids runs a 4-minute mile, and the other says, okay, if you can do it, so can I. Watch this. Is that the kind of thing that you saw?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talk about infectious either way, good and bad sometimes in sport. But, all of a sudden, Aaron Weir looks over and says, I've been training with Cameron Ponder, and it just starts to kind of go up, and he just did that, so I'm ready to do this. And it also raises the game of, what's really good, what's exciting. I love the fact that we have multiple people going to NCAA championships. I came from a pretty much of a sprints and jumps program, so I was kind of the only distance runner, so, just had to hang out with the distance coach, while you're at the NCAA championships for a week. And now all of a sudden, we're starting to look at, boy, do we need a bus to go to the NCAA regional championships instead of just our personal car. You talk about Rita and I, and back in the beginning of the program, it'd be Troy Reeder and Allie Buhalski the first year or two. Is only 2 people. So we always talk about wanting and needing a bus to get to some of those high level races, and that's when it's pretty exciting. 12, 14 people to go out to Stanford, one of the biggest invitationals in the country. Those are the great problems to have. That we want to try to make sure we always have.
Yeah, and infectiousness inside a program, as you mentioned, can be good or bad, but that kind of competition, when it gets infectious, that only breeds good things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Robert Gary with us on this week's edition of Inside Furman Athletics as we're talking about the cross-country and track and field program. You mentioned the large number of new athletes coming into your program this year, and yet your men's team is still ranked 20th in the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have 47 people on the roster, which is our biggest roster that we've ever had. So we're actually very, very proud of that, particularly if we feel like everybody's working towards something. But for us, almost half those kids have never actually participated in a real cross-country program. We had a lot of freshmen last year, and it was a season, but all it was one SoCon, cross-country championship race, no tune-up races or anything else. And then we also had an NCAA championships, which was actually, selected by, committee. So I like that we've built up that kind of resume, that tradition, that kind of following, to get a berth. And, we're excited. This is the first year that we have, so many new people for the first time going through the process of an entirety of a cross-country season. 3 big invitationals. We go to the 3 biggest ones probably in the country to kind of feed in before conference championships and everything. So we got some new people, but the last time we did this, we redshirted some of our best people, and both programs missed literally by a second. It was just a throwaway, freshman year. We thought we were going to be way back, and something about, I think, at Furman now that we've developed, that the rest of the staff does a tremendous job at making sure that those expectations are in place. And we always talk about challenge as a privilege. So we don't have off years, never so off that we're not making it to the NCAA championship. So that's, I like that kind of Mendoza line that we've kind of drawn down to use a baseball
reference. I like it. So at what juncture do you start making decisions about, okay, these are some kids that probably we will redshirt. These are the ones that we're going to let run as true freshmen. When do you start making those decisions?
Well, we really like to redshirt a little bit further on in their collegiate career, get them set. We think like the best way to transition in is to go through a season, to be around the team. You can always go to some races, and obviously we're training together all the time. But down the road, we're pretty committed to the Furman Advantage that President Davis has really laid out. So we actually have a number of kids. In fact, the vast majority of even our very best kids, probably 80% of our program, goes and studies abroad one semester. So that kind of, lends itself kind of naturally. And if we can get someone up and running and developing, knowing what it's all about, seeing what some of these meets are like, even if they're not wildly successful their very first year, they're at least the 7th, 8th best runner on the team. They get on the bus, they get to experience an NCAA championship. And it really helps them, I think, down the line to really raise that level of even, greater excellence. Now, we do have some depth. We got some mid-distance people that are really a little bit more 8-milers. And so cross-country gets to be a little far for them. We'll have some kids run unattached, but we really leave it up to the kids on the team. We kind of try to make sure we're clear with them where they're at, what they're doing. But, Furman's also a great place to kind of get kids through in 4 years. It's a rather expensive school, and people get on tracks pretty good here. There's not a lot of, back in my day, it was the best 7 or 8 years of your life. I think those days, I think, have come down a little bit more, certainly with cost of attendance and everything else. But, we try to run everybody that could possibly help us and really kind of leave that challenge for them to, kind of work through our, get into the starting, group.
If the men are starting the season ranked 20th in the country, and you talked about the turnover at the women's program, what's the expectation? Well, you've already talked about the expectation, but how quickly do you anticipate your women's program getting to where you think they should be?
Right now, we
just right out of the gate.
Both programs, we want to defend our SoCon titles in cross country all the time. We want to advance to the NCAA championships, and I think that we do a good enough job that once we're there, we do a really, really, good job. I know it's a tall order. I know they're moving from 5K to 6K, but we also had a freshman class last year that ran significantly faster than that original girl gang on the track last spring. So we're not just starting from scratch, and a lot of people, kind of walking off. We've built up probably a better resume of kids out of high school. They've run faster. They've competed, at a higher level, probably out of high school, and even for last year, freshman year. So, both programs either pull up or push along, whatever we have to do. But we want an entire, team on the bus. Believe me, you don't want to be in my house if the women's program isn't doing well. Believe me. But those are the expectations that these women have, and they're very committed to it, and we don't want to give up a year. We want everybody to experience going to the national meet all 4 years they're at this university.
Now, you're not saying there's competition in your house between you and Rita, are you?
No, but I'm probably a little bit more. Rita can get pretty excitable. I'm probably a little bit more held back until I'm not. So it's just better for the Gary household with both programs at the NCAA championships.
Yeah, then maybe on a future edition we need to give her a few minutes for rebuttal on this and see what she has to say. Sure. We are visiting with Robert Gary, the cross country and track coach here at Furman, as we get into wrap-up mode here on this week's edition of Inside Furman Athletics. We mentioned this opening weekend. We're recording this, and this is dropping on the afternoon of Wednesday, September the 8th. Friday night, the 10th, you have what you call your Stakeholder Dinner, and that is the big event ahead of your first race on Saturday. So let's start with this dinner on Friday night. What's that all about?
Well, not a lot of schools. I think once kids go off to college, I think parents kind of lose a little bit of the, traveling to all the meets, seeing all the parents all the time. A lot of times we're zipping in and out of cities all over the country. Sometimes they can't afford to get there, take off work, and then we're always kind of catching a plane. This was an opportunity that we started our very first year of. It started off with just the kids on the team, and then their parents kind of coming into town, and it's really just an opportunity for me to do a little bit of a state of the program, and also preview what we hope to accomplish in the upcoming year. Subsequently, we've won the SoCon the last 8 years, and we do the ring ceremony from the previous year, kind of giving out the rings, making it a big deal. And since that time, it's really grown. Almost always Chris Bork, 1978 grad, who's really responsible for endowment, some really key giving at some key times to really get our program to kind of keep up with some of the Power 5 schools around the country as far as some of the supports go. He comes back, kind of representing the Bork Foundation that he's been doing ever since 2005. Elizabeth Davis and Charles are attending. Jason, obviously, and his wife, Aaron Wissing and Development, all the support people that we have, special awards that we give out in previous years. It's a real great way to, our staff sometimes has a tendency of just hammering and moving on to the next thing. This just allows us to create some pause, make sure that everybody realizes just how much horsepower there is. And I mentioned our 4 staff members, but you can imagine when a kid's sitting in the audience and looks up and, Elizabeth Davis, who's quite busy, a head athletic director, take time out of their schedule to show up and celebrate our program. That just sends the kind of message that I know the university wants to send over in the academic sides of things, with that individualized attention, really celebrating the achievement of our student athletes, their parents being in town, everything else. So to me, this always kicks off our cross-country season. Sometimes we have a meet before, but it's usually a small meet just to appease kind of NCAA rules. This is where we start our program. This is where we also announce this is what we're getting ready to do in this upcoming year. And I think that's a great thing to do, to be able to put it up on a line, puts everybody on key for it, and really gets everybody hyped.
How inspiring of a coach is this guy? I don't think that our viewers can see this, and I know you don't know what's going on, but as you're talking, there's a ladybug on the bill of your cap, and that sucker is running laps, right? and it was just going in circles. So you've even got nature training here as we go through this thing. So that's Friday night, and then your first home race in as we said, 3 years. You've missed the last two because of hurricanes and COVID. Will be here Saturday at Furman. Who's coming? Just give us the breakdown.
We got 7 or 8 kind of smaller schools. Probably the biggest school that's coming is Eastern Kentucky University, which always is a really strong program in our region. But the women are racing 5K starting at 8:30. The men at 9:05. There's an entranceway out onto the golf course. Kind of if you come from the lake, maybe park at the bookstore and over by the DH and everything and walk on. Admission's free. Really a great event. Both programs are just running 5,000 meters because next week we go to Florida State for the start of kind of Florida State, Notre Dame, Wisconsin, probably the 3 biggest cross-country invitationals in the country. So we didn't want to run, full distance or whatever, but a good opportunity to, we'll race everybody. Everybody's parents will be out there from the evening before. We always get some great VIPs to show up and cheer us on. So great event, just 5,000 meters, so it's not a super long race. It's on a loop course, so you can just walk back and forth. It's a mile loop, so really kind of spectator friendly. But for us, it's first glimpse of where we're at with our team before we really kind of throw into the gauntlet and race the best teams in the country.
So it's at the Furman Golf Course Saturday morning. What time does it start?
8:30 for women, 9:05 for men.
All right, and then everybody will be running.
Yep, every single person. Yep.
You sound like you're a little bit excited.
Yeah, I really like this week. It's a lot of work, and we got a lot of people working. But I tell you, when you stand up and I get to kick off, it's one of my most enjoyable things of the year is to look out and see all the kind of people horsepower that Furman has. I think it's one of the things that we don't want to talk about for some reason. I don't know if we're embarrassed about it at this university, but it's unbelievably unique. I think sometimes people take it for granted at this university, but that's the special individualized attention and unique detail. And from the biggest people on campus to some of the support people that we have, it's just a great coming together of our program, a celebration of our program, and perhaps sometimes most importantly, I like getting up there and saying this is what we're about to go and do and putting everybody on the hook to achieve it.
Kind of like laying out the challenge, right?
Yep. Everybody loves that.
This is a program that has consistently met challenges, exceeded those expectations, and I get the idea that that's the way you like it. There's not a whole lot of pressure. It's just this is who we are and this is what we do, right?
Yeah, and I think everybody's kind of on board with that. And we have certain kids on the team with sexier goals than others, but everybody getting better, staying healthy, grades. I think you'd have a hard time coming to a practice and knowing who's a full scholarship All-American versus a walk-on just trying to make the travel team, and that's the way I like it.
I think the most impressive thing I've heard here was Robert Gary's proper use of the Mendoza line, the baseball reference. Doug Allison is going to be next week's guest, the esteemed soccer coach for the men's program here at Furman. He knows one baseball reference, and that's because it's attached to his name. So I'll have to give him a hard time about that. Robert, thank you so much.
Yep, it was a pleasure.
I appreciate you coming and spending some time with us on Inside Furman Athletics. Again, that first meet Saturday morning, Furman Golf Course, women 8:30, men at 9:05, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. We encourage people to come. The football team will be away at Cookeville, Tennessee, to take on Tennessee Tech in the afternoon. So campus will be wide open. Come here and support this cross-country and track and field program that has been so incredibly successful over the last, 8 straight Southern Conference championships. Yep. So, again, no pressure.
Nope. Just what we're going to try to do.
Just go out and do it again. All right, this has been this week's edition of Inside Furman Athletics. Robert Gary has been our guest. I'm Dan Scott. We will be back with you again next week. And, again, it's scheduled to have Doug Allison, the men's soccer coach, as our guest next week. Until then, for Robert and for all of us here at Furman, I'm Dan Scott saying God bless you and so long, everybody.